Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at something pretty big, the future of financial planning and analysis, FP&A, as we head towards 2030.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
It really is, because forget the traditional, step-by-step ways of doing things.
Exactly.
What our sources are pointing to is a move towards something, much more dynamic, interconnected. Some even call it like a central nervous system for the business.
That's a really good analogy, actually, because when you look at the material, this isn't just tweaking things.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental reimagining of what FP&A does, how it integrates, really, into, everywhere in the business.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack that. What does it really mean for finance to act like this network?
Mm-hmm.
All the sources we looked at, they keep coming back to this core idea, this transformation.
Yeah, consistent theme.
And the exciting part, I think, is moving away from those, isolated pools of data.
The silos.
Exactly, the silos. Towards something much more unified, more insightful, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's dig in. First step, this big shift from linear to networked.
Okay, so traditionally, FP&A has often been quite, sequential,
Like A leads to B leads to C.
Pretty much. You do your financial plan, that feeds operational plans, and so on, kind of end to end.
A one-way street almost.
Yeah, you could say that.
But the future, based on what we're reading, is way more interactive, more like that nervous system idea, information flowing back and forth, not just one way.
Exactly, creating this web of connections. Information isn't just pushed out, it's pulled, it's shared, it moves in multiple directions.
And the upside of that.
Oh, it's pretty significant. Better understanding, for one. You see how everything connects.
Which means better decisions, presumably.
Right, because you're seeing more factors at once. And also more agility. The system can react faster to changes.
Adaptability.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. And a huge part of making that network function is getting rid of those data silos, right?
Absolutely fundamental. We all know the drill, don't we?
Yeah. Financial data's in the ERP.
Planning happens in Excel somewhere.
KPIs are scattered God knows where.
Exactly. It's just fragmented, not efficient at all.
So the future vision connects all that.
That's the core idea, truly connected data streams. So finance isn't just looking at finance numbers.
It's pulling in data from sales.
HR operations?
All of them. Sales, HR, R&D, ops, procurement, you name it. Seamless links.
So imagine making a decision. It's not just based on the finance report anymore.
No, it's based on this aggregate view. Financial, strategic, operational data all together in one place, ideally.
No more hunting things down.
Exactly. The decision should just be much richer, more informed.
Yeah.
Because you have that complete context. You don't get that when data's stuck in separate boxes.
Okay, so this connection, this integration, it leads to another interesting point from the sources. Finance as a learning system.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is really cool, I think. It's not static anymore. Not just looking backwards.
How does that work? Like AI learning?
Sort of, yeah. In principle, the idea is continuous learning and adapting, like that nervous system again.
It's constantly taking in new data, analyzing forecasts, misses, why did we miss, comparing scenarios, running simulations, always adjusting.
So planning, budgeting, forecasting.
Yeah.
They become living things.
Exactly. Living processes. They evolve as the market changes, as the business performs, not just set once a year.
That's a big shift from the old rigid annual cycle.
Huge shift. And a key part of this is getting beyond just, reacting to problems.
Treating symptoms.
Right. The idea is to spot the early signals, maybe in cash flow or margins or working capital.
And trace them back.
Trace them back to the root cause. Why is this happening?
Instead of just saying, oh, profit's down.
Precisely. You find the why and fix that. And the sources really highlight things like predictive analytics, simulations.
For proactive problem solving.
Exactly. Looking ahead, anticipating issues, modeling different choices before you make them, understanding the likely impact.
That sounds way more strategic than just reporting numbers.
It is. It's a major step up for FP&A.
Okay, so networked, not linear. Integrated data, not silos. Continuous learning, not static reports. Now, how do we actually process all this data?
Yeah.
The sources talk about multidimensional thinking.
Yeah, this is where it gets really powerful. Think about traditional analysis. Maybe you look at one product line.
Or one region.
Right, often kind of in isolation. You don't always see the full context or the knock-on effects.
But with all this connected data.
You can slice and dice it many ways at once. look across regions and products and cost centers and time periods and different scenarios simultaneously.
Like going from a 2D picture to a 3D model, or even 4D.
Maybe. It's definitely a richer, more layered view, like the hidden layers in a neural network, processing information from many angles.
Okay. But with all that information, isn't there a risk of overload? How do you focus?
That's crucial. Prioritization becomes key.
Like the network analogy again, assigning weights to signals.
Exactly like that. Not all data is equally important for every decision. Finance teams need to identify and prioritize the critical drivers.
What kind of driver?
Well, the sources mention things like, is EBIT more critical right now? Or cash flow?
Okay.
Should we push for top-line growth at all costs? Or focus on bottom-line efficiency?
Trade-off.
Trade-offs. Or understanding volume versus price impacts, weighing these things, seeing how they interact across all those dimensions? That's the skill.
Got it. So this multidimensional analysis, the constant data flow, it demands agility, right?
Right.
You can't just stick to the plan if everything's changing.
Absolutely not. Agility is like a core requirement for future FP&A.
And how does that work in practice?
Feedback loops are critical. The sources emphasize this. You look at the plan versus actual deviation.
See where you were wrong.
Exactly. Or maybe new information comes in, a new scenario emerges. That feedback needs to flow back into the planning process seamlessly.
And the systems themselves need to adapt.
Ideally, yes. The vision is for finance systems that can almost automatically adjust. Maybe tweak budgets or update KPIs or shift goals in near real time based on current conditions.
Wow, okay. Dynamic adjustments.
That's the power of having it all networked and integrated. And none of this agility happens without automation.
The robots taking over.
Not quite. But automation is essential for the routine stuff.
What kind of routine stuff?
Things like generating standard reports, the whole month-end close grind.
Calculating KPIs.
Yeah, endless KPIs, maybe even initial cash flow projections, stuff that's rules-based and time-consuming now.
So if tech handles that?
It frees up the humans, frees up finance professionals to do the strategic thinking, the deep analysis, the insight generation.
So automation enables the higher value work.
Precisely. It's not about replacing people. It's about augmenting them, letting them focus on what they do best, thinking, analyzing, advising.
This really does paint a picture of finance becoming, well, central, like that organizational brain idea you mentioned.
It is a powerful metaphor, isn't it? Because the networked finance function creates transparency.
How so?
By linking all those data points, you get this comprehensive view of the whole enterprise. You stop seeing departments as separate kingdoms.
And start seeing the organization as a complete system.
Exactly, an interconnected system.
And when you see the system, you understand the links, the dependencies.
Yes. And the trade-offs. Decisions aren't made in a vacuum anymore. You can see the potential ripple effects across the business.
So a decision in sales, you can see how it hits operations and then the bottom line.
Clearly and hopefully quickly. That understanding of interdependencies is what leads to smarter, more aligned decisions everywhere.
Okay, so if finance is becoming this sophisticated brain, what does that mean for the CFO and the finance teams day to day?
Well, the future CFO, as the sources paint it, is more like the orchestrator of this brain.
Making sure all the parts work together smoothly.
Exactly. Overseeing the whole complex system. The core functions are still there: planning, forecasting, scenario analysis.
But they have to be integrated, not separate tasks.
Absolutely critical. They can't be siloed activities anymore. You need integrated models, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, all linked dynamically.
And forecasts need more than just finance data.
Right. They need to pull in those operational drivers, the strategic inputs we talked about.
And the scenario planning gets more advanced.
Much more. Simulating big shocks, demand drops, cost spikes, supply chain chaos, and seeing how the whole system reacts because it's all connected.
So the finance team's job changes quite a bit. Less number crunching in isolation.
Definitely. It shifts towards understanding the relationships between the numbers, identifying patterns, predicting anomalies.
Using these network-like systems for the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Leveraging the tech for routine analysis, freeing up the team to focus on strategic insights, proactive guidance, moving up the value chain, essentially.
Wow. Okay, this has been really illuminating, a proper deep dive. So let's try and summarize the main points.
Okay.
We're seeing this big shift, right? Away from old linear FP&A.
Toward something much more agile, interconnected, technology-driven.
Built on these network ideas like continuous learning,
Spotting signals early.
multidimensional analysis,
Adaptive feedback loops.
all combining to constantly refine planning and forecasting.
Yeah, that captures it well. And the point isn't just efficiency, right?
No, it's about deeper understanding.
A holistic view of the business dynamics,
Yeah.
equipping organizations to handle the future's complexity with more foresight, more precision.
It definitely sounds like a game changer. Okay, so final thought for everyone listening. We've talked a lot about finance becoming this interconnected learning system.
Mm-hmm.
But think about this. How could those same ideas, integrated data, interconnectedness, continuous learning, apply elsewhere, in other parts of a business? Or maybe even, in understanding the different parts of your own life?
Interesting question.
Just something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.